What is the crack, people? So, we have got the new mic and a little bit of a different style episode today. What I want to do is strip it right back down to basics and just literally sit here and chat. It's more dedicated towards our newsletter, which is the Mindful Mondays, and I want this to be unedited, not attention grabbing, that quick dopamine hits that you usually are used of with social media these days. So I want this to be just raw, natural, sitting down, just chatting, and hopefully you'll be able to take plenty away from it. So I'm going to run through one lesson, one insight, and one intention for the week ahead, and reflecting on last week as well. So let me get started. One lesson for this week is that busier times will test your habits. And we've recently been going through a really busy time with work, which is so exciting. And I wouldn't change it for the world. In all of our different projects, things just seem to be ramping up, which is really fun and challenging in itself. But usually, whenever this happens, we find ourselves, I suppose, the usual habits that we may have been able to stick to whenever times are a little bit quieter, they become a little bit more difficult to stick to. And I'm talking really about your exercise, your nutrition, your lifestyle habits, so your morning routines, etc. All of these things are easier to maintain whenever life is pretty quiet, obviously. And whenever we get busier, then we find ourselves losing track of all them habits. But what I've learned this week, I suppose, and this is the one lesson for the week, is that it's in these times whenever you really need them. These times, whenever life is busier, we need to rely on these habits to give us that mental bandwidth, to relieve our stress levels, to raise our energy levels and our state. Like whenever I did drop off exercise for a few days away from and just solely focus on work, my productivity actually goes down and I'm less focused, I'm less energized in it. So them habits are not just a luxury, they're a priority and they need to be kept up because then that supplements your work and that supplements everything else that you're doing. So don't look at these as just flexible habits. We need to learn how to incorporate them and make them a priority no matter what time of year, because ultimately life will always get busier and busier. So if we can make sure that these habits stay in place no matter the season of life, then I think you're on to a winner. So the insight of the week was that identity should be placed on inputs. And again, this is something relevant for myself, obviously. I'm going through another injury as I've spoke about on here. But like in my previous injuries, I've found it really difficult in a sense to, I suppose, separate my identity then from the athlete because we're so wrapped up in that. We're um, just focus on being the GA player, and then whenever that's stripped away from you through injury or for other people retirement or whatever, then it can be very difficult to deal with that. And I had that little moment coming off, in the few days after this injury that I was like questioning. I was like, fuck, what do I do now? I'm not the athlete anymore, and you can feel like a bit of a waste of space almost, and that's weird to say, but I think that's just being honest. However, athletes respond or how athletes feel after this initial injury phase. But what I've learned, or the insight that I want to share, I suppose, that I've been reflecting on this week, is that whenever we put our identity on our inputs rather than the outputs, rather than that overarching figure that we're looking at. So whether you play sport, whether you are a business owner, your identity doesn't have to be on them things or them types of people. It can be put on the inputs, and I think this is a lot healthier approach that I've learned. Is that I can identify with the inputs that I'm putting in. So I want to be the type of person who works hard. I want to be the type of person who is disciplined. I want to be the type of person who gets up early in the morning. put your identity on the controllables rather than the things that are outside of your control. You know, for years I put my identity on being the athlete who was essentially just trying to be perfect the whole time and maintaining perfect performances, which is a completely silly thing to do, and it's just unrealistic to be able to maintain that, and it's quite brittle because no athlete is going to have 100% perfect performances week on week. So you're just leading yourself down a road of disappointment and frustration. Whereas you can always put your identity on the inputs. You can be the athlete who works hard. You can be the athlete who will give 100% no matter what. If you put it on them inputs, it's a lot more stable and a lot healthier for your mind, is what I've found. So yeah, hopefully that insight is valuable for any of you athletes or even, professionals in general. So yeah, the intention for the week, going into this week ahead, is going to be to spend a little time alone and give myself some thinking time. It's not something that I often do. I spend a lot of time alone, but I a lot of this is filled with work. A lot of it is spent thinking about work and focusing on how I can improve the business or how I can improve different aspects of life. Whereas I think just giving yourself that free thinking time is really important. So getting outside into nature and just um, using that as a medium or a vehicle to then just open up your mind to what's going on in bigger areas of life and in life in general. And I seen this quote this morning and I just want to read it out to you. So our solitary moments are in reality a homage to the richness of social existence. Unless we've had a time alone, we can't be who we would like to be around our fellow humans. And this is from Alain de Botton, and it's in School of Life. But I found it so interesting because the more we spend time around people and with other distractions on social media, etc., the less we become ourselves because we're outsourcing our way of being, we're outsourcing our thinking to these other people. So the more time you spend alone and give yourself that thinking time. I'm not saying to spend the whole week alone. I'm saying to give yourself an hour, half an hour, even on a Sunday, or whenever you're doing your weekly roundup or your weekly reflections. Just give yourself that time to think about yourself and who you want to become, who you are currently, what you're doing, and everything like that. Do a small little audit on yourself, because this is the only way we'll actually understand ourselves and truly become the person that we idealize, or that future version of ourselves. So that's going to be my intention for the week, is just to give myself that 15 to 30 minutes of thinking time outside in nature preferably, and just, I suppose, see where it goes. Just give myself that time to think outside of work and see what comes up, because it is harder and harder to remain present these days. So hopefully this will help, and this video is aimed at, I suppose, just removing all of them distractions and just sitting here and chatting. But yeah, bit of a different one today, and yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. So I'll catch you in the next one.